And so now I would like to introduce Kia, who needs no introduction to any of us, I'm sure. But she is the project coordinator, she has been for the last 3 years, of the IMP project. And she's also a member of the NGO workshop in Intangible Heritage Flanders NGO. And she will introduce and give reflections on the course of the project through these 3 years. Kia.
This better? So welcome everybody on my behalf as well. I thank you, Janet, for offering me the floor. We are here today to round up the Intangible Cultural Heritage and Museums project and share with all of you the results of our project. They are the outcomes of a process that started some 4 or 5 years ago in a very warm office in Paris. Where representatives from the partner organizations gathered to map out its blueprint. There we envisaged how a series of activities could contribute to the building of the professional capacities and to providing international interdisciplinary exchange and network opportunities, crucial in raising awareness and gathering existing good practices and inspiration in relation to safeguarding the intangible heritage of communities, groups, and individuals, together with and through the support of museums. On behalf of the 5 partner organizations in the ICH and Museums project, I first and foremost want to state our gratefulness towards the support we received from Creative Europe in the form of grant, but also the co-financing grant we received from the Flemish government, the additional support from the Swiss Bundesamt für Kultur and the French Ministry of Culture, as well as to the UNESCO Section for Living Heritage for endorsing the grant application back in 2016. Our appreciation goes out to our associated partners, ICOM, the International Council of Museums, NEMO, the Network of European Museum Organizations, and the ICH NGO Forum for their continued support during the course of our project. And NEMO more specifically for inviting us twice in a row to their annual conferences in Malta and Tartu, where we could represent our work to dozens of museum professionals. Our appreciation also goes out to the crucial and unwavering support of our think tank members, a group of independent cultural heritage professionals from throughout the partner countries. And in my capacity as coordinator of the project, I want to thank the 4 partner organizations and especially their delegated representatives who formed the project steering group for all of the work they have done throughout the years. All of these aforementioned intermediary organizations and heritage workers who are situated all over Europe have each activated several players in their networks, involving their existing contacts and getting to know new ones, facilitating the multiplication of connections that are of the utmost importance to this type of collaboration. I salute them very dearly for this hard work that often remains invisible. The networks operating in the ICH fields on the one hand and in the museum field on the other hand, that have in the past frequently acted separately, have now grown much closer towards each other, tackling challenges and uncovering opportunities together and getting the most out of this European collaboration. As an example, I was struck immensely the past few days by how the museums that are a member of the ICOM network eagerly liked their Facebook posts on our book publication, and I didn't imagine this much enthusiasm would exist. So, the 5 countries that are involved in the IMP project, Belgium, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Italy, and France, form an interesting cross-section, making their activities a good observation post for European differences, wrote Annemarie de Wild, I don't know if she's here, from the Amsterdam Museum in a blog post about her participation to our IMP session in Italy. And indeed, who would have thought that people from the south weren't that comfortable about participating in workshops where they had to use dice, or where they had to state their opinions by positioning oneself physically nearer or further away from one person or the other. And that dancing in order to break the ice is really uncomfortable to everyone, but that Jasper Visser managed to get everyone moving either way. And that some cliches about partner countries in Europe might hold some truth. Italians and their love of coffee, food and wine, for example, or the punctuality of the Swiss. Quoting Annemarie once again, and I think she has great observational skills, I can agree that language is still a major dividing line at European conferences. But even this we tried and managed to overcome, at least partially. And here I quote our think tank member Florence Pisorni, because of the wonderful atmosphere of trust, solidarity and affection that drives the group of people involved. So needless to say, I'm very pleased to have everyone gathered here today. On a more personal level, I would also like to take the opportunity to express my gratitude towards my colleagues at Workshop Intangible Heritage for having my back the past few years. I would like to thank Evelien Segers over there for joining us at the IMP headquarters since the birth of my daughter last year, for among other things, taking the organization of the Mechelen edition on and of this symposium. But foremost to Jorijn Nering, who has been mentioned already several times, the coordinator of our organization, for all of the opportunities she has provided me with for guidance and support throughout the whole course of this comprehensive project. A sincere and warm thank you. And to all of my colleagues and even ex-colleagues who are here today to make sure that everything goes smoothly and according to plan. The IMP project included the organization of 5 events, one in each partner country, focusing on capacity building of all the parties involved and on transnational mobility. We did so by organizing international conferences and expert meetings in all of the partner countries. They included keynotes, the development of position papers, presentations of over 60 inspiring examples by museums from the Netherlands, France, Italy, Switzerland, and Belgium, next to workshops, debates, and panels with practitioners of intangible heritage. In the run-up to these conferences and expert meetings, 5 project calls were published, targeting practitioners of intangible heritage, who were given the opportunity and a budget to collaborate with a museum of their choice concerning their heritage in developing a co-creation. The meetings also functioned as networking events for cultural heritage professionals who are interested in the bond between ICH and museum, and they served the overall goals of exploring the variety of approaches, interactions and practices on ICH and museums. They fostered the development of new cross-sectoral connections that focus on safeguarding intangible heritage in and with museums, as well as creating and sharing knowledge and expertise revolving around this topic. The 5 meetings were structured around 5 key challenges: shared areas of interest for contemporary intangible heritage and museums practice, that of diversity, participation, urbanized society, innovation, and cultural policies. The initial question that we posed ourselves was, does the ICH paradigm offer museums innovative approaches that can help tackle these challenges? But looking back, we realized that we have not kept ourselves to exploring these 5 challenges. We have actually broadened the scope, and the focus has been opening up towards the much larger quest on how to shape dynamic interactions between all parties involved from the fields of ICH and that of museums, mutually reinforcing each other for the sake of heritage care, encased in a larger framework, a path towards more social relevance, social cohesion, sustainable development and cultural diversity, rather than just one party helping out the other or favoring one approach above the other. No, it is rather in combining and dynamizing the existing mechanisms in place for the care for tangible and intangible heritage, being sets of skills, capacities, expertise, that new perspective on heritage care can be developed. This idea of intersections is further elaborated in our book, and it will be the topic of the contribution of Tamara Nikolic-Ceric, chief editor of the book, later this morning and in the afternoon. So our journey towards uncovering these insights started in the Netherlands, where we were hosted by Museum Rotterdam. There we talked about the relation between intangible heritage, museums, and diversity. The example of the Dutch Zuiderzeemuseum taught us that museums can act as fora to discuss pressing societal issues in our super diverse world, such as the debate surrounding Black Pete. Or that diversity in relation to intangible heritage and museums also opens up a range of themes and topics that can be addressed. For example, when focusing on the meaning and making of heritage with young adults, addressing today's living party culture, as does Imagine IC. And about promoting cultural diversity and equality by opening up different perspectives on heritage. It was during this meeting that Mark Jacobs introduced a Trojan horse filled with CGIs, communities, groups, and individuals who are the key players when it comes to safeguarding intangible heritage. In our common reflection, not solely communities. Their participation, or at minimum their free, prior, and informed consent, isn't only key in the UNESCO 2003 Convention for Safeguarding Intangible Heritage, but also a great concern of museums as well, in relation to being relevant to different involved communities, groups, and individuals, and diverse audiences. That is why our session at the International Puppetry Museum in Palermo revolved around the topic of participation. There we learned that diverse forms of participation in museums relating to intangible heritage all have their form of importance and can serve different purposes. There exists, for example, museums that have been created with the sole purpose of safeguarding intangible heritage and keeping it alive, such as the Puppetry Museum itself, and others whose initiatives might focus on raising awareness on a specific type of intangible heritage to a larger public. And even others that incorporate the principles behind the ICH paradigm into their daily practice, such as the Castello d'Albertis in Genoa, or examples such as the Zeus Museum in the Netherlands that actively supports the transmission of craft knowledge and skills. In Palermo, Janet Blake, whom we are very happy to have here with us today again, made us aware of the human rights perspective in our work and of the strong link between museums and the participation of the people concerned who embody or perform intangible heritage in the light of their right to enjoy and have access to their cultural heritage. The topic of urbanized society was the focal point of discussion and reflection. Oh, yeah, Palermo. Here, next one is Bern, in the Swiss Alpine Museum, and uncovered many links with the topics of diversity and innovation. There, examples such as the Musée Grérien showed that museums have the capacity to make people involved, intangible heritage practitioners and museum visitors alike, reflect upon the importance of the changing nature of intangible heritage. We also learned that a lot of museums working on the topic of ICH museums and urbanization have great potential to contribute to the identification and implementation of sustainable solutions for the pressing issues our society is faced with today. The Maremma Natural History Museum, for example, in Italy, working on biodiversity, or the Felix Art Museum in Belgium, developing actions that strengthen social cohesion. In a setting that couldn't practically be more remote and everything except for urban, and because of its location, a logistical challenge, organization-wise, as to say the least, the Cité Internationale de la Tapisserie in Aubusson, France, was where we got deeper into the topic of innovation in relation to intangible heritage and museums. And I'm keen on sharing today what Cécile Duvel, the former chief of the ICH section at UNESCO, highlighted in her conclusion to this meeting, and to add some additional insights. She stressed the impossibility of integrating intangible cultural heritage in museums whilst keeping up traditional structures, both literally and figuratively, in place. In her opinion, museums have to become co-construction spaces where tradition can adapt to our contemporary way of life and to a modern economy. And there are also spaces dedicated to cultural democracy where know-how and knowledge can meet and are able to interact. She believes that intangible heritage is a driving force to incite museums to step out of their comfort zones, but the other way around holds true as well. In order to be innovative and sustainable at the same time, the relationship between museums and communities, groups, and individuals involved in intangible heritage should be based on equality and complementarity and on mutual respect. Museum Hof van Bussleden, only 15 minutes away from Brussels, capital of Europe and the European Union, was where we put the topic of cultural policies at the fore. Policy on culture at international, European, national, regional, and local governmental levels form a considerable part of the reference frame against which museums are being effectuated. How can all of these policy levels interplay and focus on the viability of the heritage concerned? The Mechelen meeting was a fascinating and eye-opening moment of exchange that uncovered the different potential available in different national contexts. A lot is happening, but much more will need to happen still in the context of Europe. Finding a keynote speaker in Mechelen that could speak on behalf of the European governance level about the topic of ICH and museums proved more difficult than we expected. But we hope that the European Year of Cultural Heritage, the recommendation of the Council of Europe, and this Europe-supported project have contributed to broadening perspectives and multiplying the amount of initiatives on the intertwined relation between intangible heritage and museums. And perhaps in the grant application form of Creative Europe, next to the existing two boxes being tangible culture/museums and intangible heritage, even a third box could be added. We are truly grateful that Europe, as well as the Flemish government, has made our trajectory towards the realization of a third space in the heritage field possible. And we hope for their continued investment in providing opportunities, space, financial incentives for this type of transnational cooperation and exchange. We hope that insights and developments that stem from this project can be translated into policy and programs. Boundary crossing partnerships have grown because of their support, and we are eager to continue. We find it incredible that today representatives from ICOM, from NEMO, from UNESCO, from the ICH and EO Forum will continue the dialogue on ICH and museums that appears on cruising speed. Catherine Magnon, the deputy head of the unit at the European Commission, would have loved to join us today, but unfortunately she was prevented. Next to the conferences and expert meetings that I offered you a bird's eye view on, the project also included other elements and outcomes. We set out to create inspirational and pragmatic methodological tools for museums in order to engage with members of communities, groups, and individuals involved in intangible heritage, with the eye on safeguarding their heritage. Input for the toolkit was gathered throughout the course of the project, as you can see here. And the input is now divided into 3 categories, being introduction, tools, and inspiration. Next to providing newly developed tools, we also felt it important to gather existing material relating to ICH and museums in our overview. It is open for additions in the future and is integrated on the project's website that serves as a knowledge-sharing repository. Jasper Visser, who was our compagnon de route in developing workshops and tools, will explore with you more in detail this afternoon after presenting a short introduction in the morning. The expertise, the knowledge, and the inspiration we gathered throughout the past 3 years form the basics of the book publication and of an executive summary in 5 languages entitled Museums and Intangible Cultural Heritage, Towards a Third Space in the Heritage Sector, a companion to discover transformative heritage practices for the 21st century. In this publication, we argue that merging the approaches and the related competences from different so-called heritage paradigms form, in effect, a fruitful interface, a new space for heritage care to be unfolded, be it related to tangible or intangible heritage. And Tamara Nikolac-Ceric, chief editor of the publication, will go deeper into detail in her contribution to this symposium. So coming to the end of my presentation on stage here, and in my capacity of project coordinator once again, I'm granted with the honor of handing out the first copies of our publication to a few people that were involved. So I want to invite Tamara herself, the chief editor of the publication, as well as the members of the steering group that are present today. Sophie Alpers, Valentina Zingari, Severin Kacha, Cornelia Meijer, and Stefan Kozlowski. And those of the think tank, Hendrik Hendricks, Mark Jacobs, Jorijn Nijrink, Florence Bizorny, Albert van der Zijde. Meg Nomgaard on behalf of the NGO Forum, David Fiom on behalf of NEMO, Tim Curtis on behalf of UNESCO, and Afsin Al-Taili and Peter Keller on behalf of ICOM International to come and join me on stage. So here we are today. Even though we are working on this topic ever since 2017 and even longer, the approaching end of the project, including this symposium, feels to me almost as a starting point of so many new possibilities. The road that lies ahead is yours to imagine, supported by the insights you will find in the book, the Toolkit, on the ICH and Museum's website, and through the actions of the partners that were involved. I warmly invite all of you to continue exploring the bond between museums and intangible heritage, and hope that you will find the inspirations and the handles you are looking for. As you will hear later on today as well, all partners that were involved in this endeavor are ready to continue supporting all who are ready to further explore the potential that we have unraveled so far. Thank you.